How can we approach our sensual stimulation? All right, that's the question for today. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Welcome to my channel. My name is Thomas, and I do videos on educational topics, mostly the basics, math and geometry, chemistry and physics, history and economics, psychology, philosophy, health and fitness, nutrition, meditation, and but I have a different take on those topics. I try to give you a more quantum or even sacred or spiritual approach to these topics. A lot of times you have to unlearn a few things that you've already learned in order to really access the topic. And as a result, for the first real unit in this on this channel, we're going to be looking at the tree of life. We've been looking at it for several months here. I'm doing 144 plus different videos on various aspects of the tree of life. The 144 are really the minor aspects of the tree of life. That I've all written them all up in a guide, a free guide that you can get if you want to click the link in the description. But the reason I use the tree is because not only is it a great tool to use in order to understand life, but it also is a great tool that you can use to integrate a large amount of other information and to organize it so that you can recall it quickly, and that you can kind of prioritize it and put it all together, synthesize it. So so we're starting out with the tree of life, and then we'll head over to some of these other subjects, and we'll already have the tree in hand, so we'll be able to really know where to put the information and be able to apply it as soon as we get it. Okay, so this is the tree right here. This is an ancient diagram. It goes back to at least ancient Egypt. It wasn't all colored in like this, but the basic diagram, the circles and the lines and the configuration. So it's got 10 different circles or spheres that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then there is a thing here called the abyss, which is an implied circle or sphere. And then there is a 0 above the tree. So 12 different components, major components to the tree. And these are basically, the tree itself is more or less a map of consciousness. And the circles and the other two, the 12 categories, are really our faculties of consciousness, or our abilities of consciousness, our aspects of consciousness. And we basically, the world, the universe evolves or involves down to here, and then we evolve in this direction. So we start with the 10th ready to go, and then we gradually open up the rest of them, as many as we can or as many as we do. Some of us never open up a single one our whole life, but most of us open up one or two of them, and then the rest of them are more what you would call a part of spiritual development that's in this world is basically optional. Okay, so the 10th sphere has to do with our really our sense of instinct. This is our sense of survival, fight or flight response, the law of the jungle, kill or be killed. This is also our life force. This sustains us, keeps us breathing, keeps our heart beating, keeps us eliminating waste, heals all of our wounds. These are things that we don't have to consciously do. Our body just takes care of it. This is really unconscious, but we can consciously more or less invert the 10th sphere and begin to destroy it through things like addictions and defilements. So the 10th sphere works for us. It's our life force. And if we leave it alone, it works very well. But when we start tampering with it, then we can negatively affect it. So while the 10th sphere is like our wild animal, we also have the 9th sphere, which is more like our domesticated animal. And so the 9th sphere is really our domestic sphere. This is what we're getting in the home growing up the first years of our life. You know, they take us home from the hospital, or if we're born at home, and we are, you know, wide-eyed. We are taking in all the new things in our environment. Everything is new and different to us and fascinating. And we stare at everything, but particularly we stare at our caregivers, the ones who are cleaning us up, you know, feeding us, sheltering us, nurturing us. And so nurturing is also a part here, nurturing and devotion. They're devoted to us, we become devoted to them. And we look at them and we watch what they do, and then we learn to imitate what they do. We begin to imitate what they do, which usually doesn't go well. We usually fall flat on our face or whatever, but we keep trying, we persist, and we practice over and over again till we get the movement right. You know, this is, you know, simple examples are just walking and talking. You know, it takes us forever to finally get the skill, but once we get it, then we basically have it memorized, and we move it down into the 10th sphere as really body memory. You know, so this is really like, you know, mind memory, and this is really more like body memory. Okay, now the problem with the 9th sphere is that it is undiscerning, and so it will imitate patterns of abuse as well as, you know, healthy patterns. Okay, now if the 9th sphere is our domestic sphere, the 8th sphere is what we get out in the public. And so this is the public, the consensus worldview. This is the expert opinion. This is what all the institutions are located. All the establishment is located, the powers that be. This is our, you know, schools and churches, our media, our government, our big corporations, and they kind of sit up there on their pedestals, and they tell us what we're supposed to believe, and they tell us how we're supposed to behave. And more or less, to the extent that we accept their belief systems and abide by their behavior rules, we gain access to the 8th sphere, which is important because the 8th sphere is really where all the fame and fortune is. All the resources are located here, and not just fortune, but even subsistence. And so in order to basically survive, you do have to be able to get into the 8th sphere to a limited degree. It's a problem because the 8th sphere will tell you the truth, but if that's convenient for them. But they will also tell you a lie if that's more convenient for them. So the 8th sphere is a trickster, and it will invert or twist the 8th sphere almost beyond recognition, and get you to buy into things that are way against your common sense. We have some common sense here, depending on our age, but once we start going to school and going to church, we start getting influences from the 8th sphere, and sometimes these influences are directly contradictory to what we've already perceived about life. You know, if they're telling you, for example, I'm not a card-carrying flat earther, but if they tell you that the world is round, and everything that you've seen about the world is that the world is flat, and so you've seen no evidence of the world being round whatsoever in all of your experiences, but they tell you that that's how it is, that the world is spherical. And so you have a tension here. There's a tension between what you've actually perceived in your life and what they're telling you is the truth. And you have to be able to kind of negotiate that, because you have to be able to get in here to a certain extent. So you might just say, okay, yeah, yes, the emperor is wearing a beautiful set of clothes. So you give it lip service and then you leave. But if you end up having to invert your own asphere, where the aspheres are basically your belief systems and your rational faculties. If you have to use things like circular reasoning or rationalization or using consensus to justify, as evidence for truth, then you end up inverting your asphere, and you can end up easily getting stuck here in the asphere. But if you keep your rational faculties intact and just kind of give it lip service, what I call minimal compliance, then you can maintain your rational faculties, and you can recognize this is just the third sphere that we're opening. We've got a lot more to go. So let me just get in here, give my lip service, and then move on to the next one. So what you really don't want to do is get stuck in here. Now, when we move over to the seventh sphere, the asphere, where the asphere is supposed to be the real world, the seventh sphere is about the imaginary world. So the seventh sphere is when you've kind of sussed out the asphere and you smelled a rat. You're like, something's wrong over here. And you move over to the asphere or to the seventh sphere, and you imagine something better. You imagine an improvement on the asphere. How can you improve the asphere? And so you use your imagination. Also at the seventh sphere, you have access to your intuition, which you trigger through your curiosity. You're curious about something, you go inside, you ask, how can I make this better? And you get a correct answer from your intuition, which you have to be able to translate properly, which can be difficult. So you have to verify your intuitions. But it's a source of truth for you to be able to go inside and get answers to, fairly simple questions. Now, you also have your inspiration. You have other people that have come before you. You can stand on their shoulders and you can see further. And they've set an example for you. Maybe they left the asphere before you did. And then we also have our creative spark, and we have a pleasure principle. This is our ability to put things together in not only new arrangements, original arrangements, but also pleasing to the beholder and also to you, your own senses. So you have your pleasure principle, your creativity, your inspiration, your intuition, and your imagination. And that you put them all together and you end up with your higher calling. So your higher calling is like your individual contribution to this universe. How can I best contribute to this universe given my strengths and weaknesses and given my situation in life? Where, what age I'm living in and what the life circumstances are. So you're coming up with an individual description for your life, as opposed to the asphere, which is giving you the cog in the machine. You got to be a professor, or you got to be a lawyer, or you got to be a cop, something like that. Okay, now you use that higher calling to propel you further up the tree. You end up at the sixth sphere, and the sixth sphere is our free will faculty. And this is really where we're located anyway. If this were a map, it would say you are here. And this free will faculty is our ability to pay attention and our ability to make decisions. Now, the first, our attention, we find, is normally directed into this kind of comfort zone here, the 8th, 9th, and 10th sphere that we're accustomed to, that we're used to dealing with. So we spend a lot of time paying attention to this area. But if we have our free will, which entails ability to make decisions, we make the decision to avert our attention from this lower area and to direct our attention toward the our higher spiritual aspects. So that takes courage, because now we're kind of looking into the unknown, which is always a scary proposition. So looking into the unknown, but we can direct it toward the 5th sphere and the next one on the list. And so the 5th sphere is really our sense of justice, or our sense of right and wrong. And this is also known as karma. You can envision this as a mirror right here, a reflection. And so it's cause and effect. And as you sow, so shall you reap. What comes around goes around. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And and karma is reflecting our violence, our waste, and our violations. So if we're acting violently, we get violent in return. If we're acting wastefully, we get wastefulness in return. We may not even know it. And so we see the returns. We see the bad results, and we're like a victim. I have the worst luck. But no, it's actually that we're creating that ourselves and then bringing it back to us. And so there's a lot of times where there's waste and violence in our actions that's hidden. We don't recognize it. A lot of times it might be socially acceptable, or everybody else is doing it. And so we don't really notice the violence inherent or the waste inherent in some of our actions. This is just, in American society, we have so many wasteful practices that, we just do, and that we don't really realize that's what we're doing. Or, if we're, buying things that are made with slave labor or something like that, that's an indirect kind of a remote violence. It's a violence that's remote from us in either time or space. But if we are paying attention, we can recognize this, and we can make an attempt to clean up our actions, thereby cleaning up our reactions. And so we end up using the 5th sphere as our teacher. It's not our punisher. It's our teacher. And eventually, once we learn to be in compliance with the laws of justice, then it becomes our protector, because we gain immunity. If we don't put it out, we don't get it back. Now, there's an exception to that has to do with past lives. And so before that, even on the 6th sphere, we need to do some things in order to clean up our past life karma through mostly what you would call disciplined self-sacrifice. Okay, now when we go to the 4th sphere, if the 5th sphere is about our sense of justice and the enforcement of the law, the 4th sphere is about the articulation of that law. So this has to do with the ancient holy books and the cosmologies, modern and ancient, that we have access to. Every tradition, every religion has one. And there's probably one or two that we've studied growing up, that we were taught at church or synagogue, or wherever we went, or if no other place, then we might have a scientific one, or if we just took your basic science curriculum, we would have a model of theory of everything, the Big Bang and so on. Now, the best approach, in my opinion, is a syncretic approach, to study as many of these as you can, and then use your intuition, go inside, ask, how do I sift all this together? How do I fit all this together in a way that makes sense to me with all the other, harmonizing with all the other experiences that I've had? Now, some people will disagree with that and feel that you have to choose one. And I kind of agree with that, but that would be more at a higher level, more at a level of like alchemy, where you choose one different technique to cultivate, in terms of meditation and alchemy. But before you choose that, I think you need to sample, go through a decent sampling of the different options. Okay, now then we have the abyss here. This is our psychic powers. This is our ability to respond to omens, and to basically to be able to act upon omens. So an omen is like a magnetic charge. This is a coincidence or a synchronicity, a recurrent theme or number. And we have to be able to notice that's happening, and then to be able to act upon it. That's psychic heat and psychic receptivity. At the top of the tree, we have 3, 2, and 1, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. All powerful, all knowing, and all present, all at once eternally. This we tap into through sound, synchronization, such as mantra. We tap into the second sphere through either an oracle, a divination system, or very deep meditation that allows us to shut our mind off of thoughts, to keep all the content out of our mind so that we can make our mind so calm that it becomes transparent, so that we can see through the mind all the way to our deepest center. When we are able to see through to our deepest center, what we see is the image of wisdom. So we see the answers. Wisdom is really the solution to problems. So when we see through the mind, we can see the image, the solution. We see the solution. Okay, then at the first sphere, omnipresence, we actually, not only do we see that image, but we are that image. We merge with that image. And by doing so, by merging with that singularity at our deepest center, we unify with the whole universe, because we recognize that what's deepest within us is the same as what's deepest within everything else. And so we kind of like spread out everywhere then and become omnipresent. So it's a unifying factor, and so we recognize that it's the whole universe, but it's just one. And so if one is the whole universe, 0 is nothing, nothingness. Now, I think you can also use the Buddhist term, which would be emptiness. And so the 1 is everything in the universe. The 0 is not in the universe. The 0 is not part of the universe, but it is part of the creator. So it's the part of the universe, part of the creator that the creator reserves for itself. So we have no direct access to this, only indirect. But even the indirect access we have can be very powerful. Okay, so those are the 12 basic, macro components of the tree of life. Now, to get to the 144, you basically just take the whole tree and you boil it down, and you boil a whole tree down to to the size of one circle, and then you apply it to this one circle, apply it to all 12. So you break this down into 12, you break this down into 12, you break this down into 12, and so on, until you add that all up, 12 plus 12 plus 12, blah, 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 you get to 144 different minor aspects. So the 144 gets into a great deal of more detail than the 12. The 12 is enough to get started with. The 144 is a little bit of a more advanced teaching. Today we're looking at number 4. How can we approach our sensual stimulations? So number 4 is located here in the 10th sphere. This has to do with our instinct, has to do with our body, and has to do with the 7th fractal, or the 7th aspect of the 10th sphere. So the 7th sphere is about imagination, in particular intuition, inspiration, creativity, pleasure principle. And so that is the little aspect within this 10th sphere that we'll be talking about. So number 4 is called sensual stimulation, likes and dislikes. Stage number 4 is about our sense impressions and putting them into perspective so they do not dominate our lives. Sense organs do not give us objective reality. They are only the transducers that translate that reality. Hearing, touch, vision, taste, and smell. 4 different sensing systems, in and out, front and back, and side to side. We are in a 5-sense prison. Sensation requires attention and wastes energy. Sensation is a disturbance which has a direction. Our senses point at the event and triangulate it. The sensations are only apparently continuous. They are really blinking on and off the same way we look at cartoons, 1 frame at a time in rapid fire. Our experience is tape recorded by the subconscious, by the spirit. In our vision, we have a brain-centered television set, and the light is bouncing off the page. The resultant comes back through our optical system and is scanned and actually goes back into the brain, and we are sensing the page in our brain. We are not sensing anything outside the body. Only vision gives us the perception of spatial form. Unlike vision, hearing is in time, not in space. Two-dimensional Fourier transform transforms the information, the auditory information, in the spatial domain of outer reality into the spectral domain of waves, before transforming it back into the proportional spatial domain of our inner reality. Touch occurs when you don't have motion. The smell of convergence is freshness. Buckminster Fuller calls it K, or growth, while divergence, the coming apart, is decay, which tends to be malodorous. Smells as bad as the smoke from the olfactory. Taste is the same as smell, only the taste is liquid. Smell is gas. Touch is solid. Vision, smell is vapor, while hearing, vision is gas. And hearing is in time, not space. The sensations are not satisfying. They are ultimately impermanent, and sensations are not an end in themselves, but rather a beginning. All right, that is the short version of the number 4, the 7th fractal of the 10th sphere, sensual stimulation. There is obviously a lot more to say about that. now, which we will hopefully get into as we go through the course. But that's kind of how these different 144 fractals are. They could all be kind of expanded on ad infinitum. I foresee or I fantasize about having a not a university, but maybe a multiversity in the future, and each one of the 144 fractal faculties would be like a separate department in the multiversity, where you have a whole department just based on sensual stimulation. It could be just this fourth fractal could be a whole library worth of books that you could write about it. And obviously then what you would do is you would take this fourth sphere and or this fourth fractal, and you would fractalize it again, break it down into its 12 parts, and then you may need to fractalize it again and again and again. So that's kind of how this works. It's really it goes infinitesimally, and so it always is capable of adding more detail. For the purposes of this course right now, all the detail that we need and all that I've had time to really do research on is this first level, taking us to the 144. But I do foresee in the future that this whole model could be taken many more steps. Okay, now I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Please press the like button, and you can also share the video with others. You can subscribe to the channel. You can make constructive comments in the comment section, and you can also get my free guide to the 144 different fractal faculties by clicking the link in the description. And you can also donate directly to me through Cash App and Venmo. I will be coming on tomorrow with another one of the 144 fractal faculties, along with a detailed description of the 12 major categories of the Tree of Life. And I hope to see you then. So have a great day, and hopefully see you tomorrow.